Working night shift at a cursed motel, 7 sinister rules revealed that haunt the corridor. Sarah could feel the weight of the world pressing down on her. The fluorescent lights above her flickered like dying stars, casting eerie shadows across the reception desk at the Crescent Moon Motel. Her heart raced, echoing the unsettling tales about this place, a rundown pit whispered to be cursed, a mere shell of the once thriving haven it had been. She had heard the rumors, guests vanishing, odd noises prowling through the halls at night, too many shadows lurking just out of sight. Financial desperation twisted her gut, forcing her to accept the night shift despite the warnings. As twilight gave way to darkness, her eyes landed on the bulletin board in the break room. In fading red ink, the 7 sinister rules stared at her like a warning. The first rule scrawled there sent shivers down her spine: never let a guest check in after midnight. She shook it off like an annoying itch, telling herself it was just superstition. She had a daughter to feed. The first couple of hours crawled by, but tension quickly bubbled under the surface. The creaking floorboard sounded mournful, echoing each footstep with ghostly intent. A distant sobbing floated through the corridors, making her skin crawl. Just old pipes, she whispered to herself, trying to shake off the encroaching dread. Every check-in felt like an interrogation, her guests' eyes seemed to bore into her with unholy curiosity. When the clock struck 11, an unsettling figure emerged from room 3. It was an older woman, pale and gaunt, her smile spreading like a spider's web. "I baked some cookies for your little one," she chirped, but Sarah felt those eyes dissecting her soul. The woman, dressed in old-fashioned clothes, seemed harmless, yet something prickled at her instincts. It sent a tremor racing through her, and she could almost hear the hushed whispers of the long-term residents behind her, too close, subtle lips curling into knowing smirks. Then the strange incidents began. Doors would creak open, and the chilly drafts carried whispers that unnerved her from the very core. "Get out," they seemed to hiss, sending adrenaline coursing through her veins. Panic was bubbling under her skin. The sounds paralyzed her thoughts, and she knew she needed help. She marched to the local police station but met only jovial dismissals. "Just a stress thing, ma," they laughed, shoving her out the door. The realization hit hard: this town was marred by neglect, not haunted by spirits, but corrupt and rotting at the roots. Returning to the motel, an unseen weight pressed down on her chest, wrapping tighter as she approached the night desk. The darkness held secrets, unspoken horrors that gnawed at her. She glimpsed Anna from the corner of her eye, blissfully playing hide and seek, completely unaware of the shadows lurking near them. With each passing minute, a gnawing tension twisted around her instincts. Then she heard it. A piercing scream sliced through the oppressive silence. Time froze. It was Anna's voice, sharp, terrified. Blind panic took hold as every muscle in her body screamed at her to run. But Sarah stood rooted, paralyzed at the desk. What horrors lay await in the Crescent Moon Motel? The walls seemed to breathe with a malevolent pulse, shadows closing in as another scream echoed down the corridor. And the question clung to her like fog: what had just awoken in this cursed place? Fear shot through Sarah as if 1,000 icy needles pierced her skin. She broke free from her paralysis, sprinting towards the source of Anna's scream. Her heart pounded violently against her ribcage, and panic clawed at her throat. "Anna!" She cried out, her voice trembling, echoing in the ominous quiet of the motel. The corridor stretched before her, darkness clinging to the cracked wallpaper like the fingers of the damned. She reached the door to room 3, a chill running down her spine as she remembered who had checked in there. The woman had been watching them. She flung the door open, heart racing. The room was dimly lit, shadows casting grotesque shapes that danced along the walls. But it was empty. "Anna!" She felt her breath hitch, an unsettling knot forming in her gut. Silence. Despair crept over her, thick and suffocating. She dashed back into the hallway, every inch of her screaming to escape this hellish place. The walls seemed closer now, as if they were folding in on her, mocking her urgency. She heard a faint sobbing again, closer this time, spinning around to see the doorway of room 3 closing slowly. It was an invitation or a warning. Her instincts screamed at her to turn back, but she couldn't abandon her daughter to whatever horror lurked inside. As she approached, the door creaked open a sliver, darkness melting into a familiar form. Mommy Anna's small voice, punctuated by tears, shattered the stillness. "Anna! Where are you?" Sarah's heart soared with relief, then plummeted as she realized her daughter was nowhere in sight. "I'm scared, Mommy. Don't leave." "Where are you?" "Just behind the door." She stumbled forward, driven by the raw terror of losing her child. The door swung open an inch wider, revealing only a deeper darkness. Sarah felt the cold air rush out, swallowing her like a shroud. She peered inside, desperate. Then she saw the outline of a figure behind Anna, a tall shadow twisting and flickering against the far wall, flickering like the dying lights above her. Her heart dropped and panic rushed through her veins. "Get away from her." The shadow swirled as if it caught wind of her presence, coiling tighter around Anna, who began to whimper. The figure turned, and for a fleeting moment, she caught a glimpse of its features' hollow eyes, a mouth twisted in an unnatural smile, and skin that shimmered like a mirage. With a primal scream, Sarah lunged forward, arms outstretched, determined to rescue her daughter from the nightmare. The figure hissed, a sound like rustling leaves, and Anna shrieked again. The darkness surged forward, enveloping them both, and the air crackled with unholy energy, something alive that refused to let go, pulling Sarah deeper into its grasp. "Please," she gasped, "not my baby!" A blinding flash of light erupted from the figure, throwing Sarah back as if she'd been hit by a freight train. She slammed against the wall, gasping for breath, echoes of Anna's cries vibrating in her ears. When she opened her eyes, the room was empty, save for the mocking silence settling over her. But then she noticed the door to room 3 stood ajar, a flicker of movement sparking inside like flame to dry wood. And the sobbing started again, muffled and far too soft. With fear tightening around her throat, she reached for it. What awaited her on the other side could be salvation or doom. Would she find Anna or face something worse? In the shadows, a whisper beckoned, "Come play." What was lurking in the dark, waiting for her to make the next move? The door swung open, revealing a void that threatened to consume her whole. Sarah hesitated, every instinct screaming to retreat, to flee this nightmare. But the muffled sobs of her daughter tugged at her, binding her in place. "Anna!" She called again, voice cracking, but nothing replied but the echo of her own desperation. The inside of room 3 was like a living entity, pulsating with an unseen malevolence. Shadows twisted in corners, merging and separating in unsettling patterns. Each breath felt heavier, laced with an instinctive dread that clawed at her senses. "Just behind the door," Anna had said. But what did that mean? The door gaped wide, mocking her wavering courage. She could feel something watching her, waiting silently in the oppressive darkness beyond. With a shaky breath, she took a step inside. The air turned frigid, wrapping around her like icy fingers. Shadows stretched longer, and every creak of the plumbing seemed amplified in the suffocating stillness. Her eyes scanned the room, searching for any sign of her daughter. The dimly lit room revealed a small bed disheveled, the blankets tossed aside as if in a struggle. The mirror across the room reflected a ghostly figure. Was it just her imagination? "Anna, sweetheart!" Sarah's voice trembled as she called out again. "I'm coming for you." In response, a chilling giggle echoed through the room, sending the hairs on the back of her neck standing on end. It wasn't Anna's laughter. It was the laugh of something wrong, something wicked. "Let us play hide and seek," the voice called, light and airy yet dripping with malice. "Find me." A surge of fear coursed through Sarah. The whole room felt alive, walls closing in, creating a trap with no exit. "Where are you?" she shouted. "Hot or cold?" "You'll have to guess." The giggle floated around her, dancing just out of reach, weaving through her mind like a sinister melody. Real panic gripped Sarah's heart. This wasn't a game. It felt like a sick game, the unknown thing shadowing Anna was toying with her. She hurriedly glanced around, searching every corner, every shadow promising escape but only delivering fear. As she stepped further in, a freezing draft swept through, flickering the lights dangerously. They hummed like bees, buzzing a warning she didn't want to hear. The shadows began to stir, shifting and coiling, revealing more of the figure looming in the gloom. Behind the bed, Sarah noticed something, a sleek, shiny fabric, not quite as dark as the shadows. She crouched down, heart thumping violently. It wasn't just a fabric, a small glimmer of soft pink poked through. "Anna!" she cried, relief crashing over her as hope ignited. She reached out, pulled it closer, revealing a pink shoe with the laces still tied just like the ones Anna had worn earlier in the day. But then, the laughter returned, sharper now, echoing with sadistic delight. "You're getting warmer." The air turned electric, an insistent hum filling her ears as dark shapes began to rise around her. She spun around, but there was nowhere to hide from the crawling dread closing in. Shadows expanded, claws elongating in the corners of her vision, and the temperature plummeted further. "Anna!" Panic ignited her voice, but doubting whispers filled the room, drowning her out. The shadows encroached like fanged beasts, eager to feast on desperation. The walls were collapsing, the cabin shuddered with each terrifying heartbeat. Above, the ceiling twisted under an unseen weight, groaning as if in pain. Sarah took a step back, but the shadows pushed her forward, engulfing her in a dark embrace, and then she saw it, something she hadn't noticed before. A door appeared at the far end of the room, where there had been just a wall. It pulsed with an unnatural light, beckoning her closer. If she didn't find Anna soon, whatever was happening would swallow them both into the depths of darkness. "Come play," echoed the voice one last time, as the hum in the air grew louder, a chorus of hidden whispers that promised all her worst fears. Sarah took a deep breath, ready to charge towards the door. There was no time to waste. But as she did, a chill echoed through the room. "Only one can play, the other must be sacrificed." The words longed to grip her throat, leaving her breathless. What awaited her beyond the door? Would she find Anna, or had the shadows already claimed her? Time was running out. With her heart pounding, Sarah lunged toward the glowing door, her feet barely making contact with the floor as she raced forward. The shadows lurked around her, whispering secrets that clawed at her sanity. "Anna!" It felt like a prayer, a plea lost in a tempest. As she reached for the doorknob, a skeletal hand shot from the darkness, grasping her wrist like a vice. The icy fingers bit into her skin, sending a jolt of terror through her body. She yanked her arm back, but the grip held firm, dragging her to a halt. The thing in the shadows twisted and gasped, wheezing out words lined with venom. "You think you can just come here? You think it's that easy? No. I need my daughter." Sarah screamed, her voice breaking, desperation spilling out in a rush. The shadows encircled her, their forms shifting like blurs in her peripheral vision. "Your daughter is playing," the voice sneered, echoing all around her, a mix of laughter and sorrow. "And soon, so will you. One life for another." The words wrapped around her like barbed wire, squeezing her breath away. Panic flooded her brain. "What do you want?" she gasped, trying to pull away from the entity that held her. The door loomed behind her, glowing brighter but just out of reach. "Sacrifice, a choice only you can make. Legacy over love, fear or freedom." The thing's skeletal visage drew closer, and from that foul mouth poured secrets laced with torment, whispering lies and taunts. "You have to let her go," Sarah demanded, forcing herself to hold the monster's gaze. "You can't take Anna." "I'll do anything, just let her go." The air thickened, and a cruel wind whipped through the dark room, swirling the shadows around her. "Anything? Is that a game you wish to play?" It hissed, teeth gleaming like a predator's as it released her wrist. She fell back a step, breathing heavily, her resolve teetering on the brink of madness. With a snarl, its form dissipated into the shadows, disappearing until it was nothing but a whisper. "Find her, but find me too. Time is fleeting." Very soon, the game will begin. The darkness around her shifted, the door behind her pulsed with urgency. She charged forward, throwing it open, but was met with an impenetrable fog. Wheels of swirling mist obscured everything beyond, as if the world beyond had crumbled into oblivion. "Anna!" she shouted again, stepping into the fog. It swallowed her, the room she just left vanishing behind her. The air thickened with despair, pressing down on her shoulders, reminding her of the something awful that lingered. "Find me." The voice rang out, playful yet chilling, like a cruel child. "You're closer than you think." She shivered, dread gnawing at her gut. A distant sob still echoed, pulling at her like gravity, but through the fog, she could not tell which direction it came from. Every second felt stolen. The ground beneath her felt uncertain, like shifting sand. Shadows, twisted and dark, darted in and out of view. She forced her legs to move, stepping cautiously. The fog shifted, a swirling depth that seemed to mock her effort as she searched. Then, just ahead, she noticed movement, a flicker of pink. Her heart raced. Anna? Was it her? Taking a deep breath, Sarah rushed forward, but as she did, the ground trembled, and the laughter returned, bubbling, sinister, echoing through the mist. "Where do you think you're going, Sarah?" It wrapped around her, suffocating. "One of you must remain, one must play." "No." She gasped, realizing that every decision could forever seal her fate. "I won't let this happen." But darkness moved in closer, seeming to blend with the fog. Shapes whispered and intertwined, becoming a tapestry of terror. As she fought against it, pulling against the suffocating grip, a terrifying thought crossed her mind. What was the price for freedom? The fog began to swirl, strong winds forming, sucking her deeper into whatever cursed reality lay ahead. "Come play," the voice whispered one last time, the shadows tightening around her. "Only one can return." And in the distance, she thought she saw a flicker of a familiar face. But whose was it? The time clock on her resolve ticked mercilessly, her heart pounding in rhythm with an impending doom. As she neared, the choice brewed and lingered, a question of sacrifice or salvation, but she had no clarity yet on either side. The fog thickened, becoming a wall of despair. Would it reveal the truth, or her undoing? With every step toward the light, she felt the terrifying question breathe down her neck: what had she truly bargained for? The fog swirled like a living entity, wrapping around Sarah, pressing against her chest until she could barely breathe. Panic rose within her, each gasp was a struggle against the creeping darkness. She blinked against the mist, desperately trying to focus on that flicker of pink, praying it was Anna. "Come play," the voice danced around her, tempting yet terrifying, as if mocking her desperation. "Anna!" she screamed, her voice trembling, swallowed by the void. Every second stretched out, drawing her deeper into a nightmare. The fog felt thicker now, swirling like a vortex that sought to drag her down further into despair. Suddenly, the pink flicker brightened, more defined. Sarah surged forward, abandoning caution, stumbling through the soupy haze. As she moved, whispers collided in her ears, fragments of words like knives, slashing at her resolve. "One must play, one must stay, shut up," she shouted, but the laughter echoed back, a twisted symphony of joy and horror. Sarah's heart fought to break free from the shackles of dread. Was it Anna? Was she close? She felt a pull, a magnetic force drawing her toward the promise of hope, a hope that felt too fragile to grasp. Then, there. The pink shape flickered again, now a little girl dressed in the same pink dress Anna loved. But as she rushed closer, disbelief washed over her. It wasn't Anna. It was something else, something twisted. The girl's face was a mask of sorrow, eyes drowned in darkness. It opened its mouth, but what came out wasn't a voice. It was a chorus of wails, drowning her in despair. "Stay with us." "No." Sarah shouted, forcefully shaking her head, as panic clawed at her throat. "I won't stay." But the fog surged, encroaching, tendrils snaking around her legs, pulling her back. Shadows converged from every side, their shapes blurring, ever-changing. She felt them lurking, hungry. "Anna!" she cried, breaking through the pleadings, desperation tethering her to reality. Then, a flicker of warmth, the brightness returned, illuminating a path through the fog. Sarah took a shaky step forward, the light pulsed with familiarity. Perhaps it was a sign, a way out. As she turned, she heard it, a mock whisper that chilled her blood. "Why do you think you can escape? Every choice has a consequence." "No!" she cried, defiance igniting within her. "You want to take me." Yet, as she pushed ahead, footsteps echoed behind her, slow and deliberate, a rhythmic menace that pounded against her resolve. "Only one can return," the shadows sang, the laughter morphing into sinister growls that crawled up her spine. A confident pulse warned her of the danger closing in. She swung around to face the darkness, heart racing like a wild horse. The silhouettes twisted closer, sharp edges catching the fleeting light. Among them, one stood out, a tall figure with the skeletal features she now recognized, eyes glistening with malice. "Choose, Sarah," it hissed, extending a long, bony finger toward her. "Save yourself or your daughter. The clock is ticking." Each breath felt heavier as she weighed the impossible. The laughter rose, an orchestra of terror, urging her to make a choice. Then she saw it again, the flicker of pink, just beyond the shadows. It glimmered like hope. "Anna," she murmured, realizations crashing like waves in her mind. "What do I do?" Her voice trembled, barely a whisper. Suddenly, the fog receded just enough to reveal a door. A door of splintered wood, cracked and twisted, standing boldly amidst the shadows. But it loomed larger than her fear. Each heartbeat echoed in her ears, stoking the fire of panic. If she chose the door, but what if it meant abandoning her daughter forever? "Choose," the skeleton taunted, its voice like gravel in her ears. Without warning, a scream echoed in the silence, a primal sound that ripped through her thoughts, chilling her veins. "Mommy!" A cry full of terror. In that moment, Sarah felt a surge of primal instinct. She had to act. The fog shuddered and the shadows recoiled. Time felt frozen, every heartbeat resonating like a distant drum. Could she take the risk? The door, or what lay behind her in the shadows? As she dove toward the flicker of pink, the shadows lunged for her, closing in with frenzied speed. "Only one may return," they wailed, hungry for her fate. Will she make it in time, or will the game consume her too? The choice loomed ahead, but darkness swallowed everything. Again would ultimately reveal the real horror hiding behind the flicker of hope. Sarah felt dashes of cold air rush against her skin, a stark contrast to the suffocating fog. The flicker of pink lurched, pulling at her sanity. She pushed through the darkness, dodging grasping shadows that wanted to ensnare her. Her heart raced as she leapt toward the door, a splintered frame teetering like a broken promise. "Mommy!" Anna's cry echoed again, sharper this time, driving a dagger of desperation into her chest. Each wail seemed to draw her back, a sinister pull she couldn't resist. She reached the door, her trembling fingers brushed against the rough wooden surface, splinters digging into her skin. "Please let it be a way out." The shadows writhed closer, cruel laughter wrapping around her. "Escape is an illusion." "No!" she barked, a sudden clarity rushing in. Sarah turned and faced the encroaching darkness, defiance surging through her veins. "I'll find a way." The door creaked as if in response, almost beckoning her into its dark embrace. But just as she grasped the handle, the shadows surged. Long, cold fingers of darkness coiled around her ankles, pulling, dragging her down. "You're not meant to leave." The whispers morphed into frantic screams, an unending loop of agonized voices, echoes of the lost. "Stay with us," they wailed, chilling her to the core. With a scream of her own, Sarah wrenched the door open and stumbled inside. The cold air rushed past her, cutting like knives. Gasping, she fell into a narrow corridor. The air inside was bitter, endlessly dark, and as she stood, she realized it was even foggier than outside. "Anna!" she cried, scrambling to her feet. Shadows clung to the corners, but the corridor stretched on, dimly lit by flickering bulbs. The relentless whispers continued, murmuring secrets she dared not comprehend, hallways twisted and turned, like a maddening maze designed to entrap her. Each step felt heavier, like she was trudging through molasses. She could taste fear in the air, metallic and thick. As Sarah moved forward, she noticed doors lining the walls, each one a bizarre shade of pastel, strangely familiar. A chilling sense of dread washed over her. "What are these?" she breathed. One door caught her eye, pristine and untouched. It glimmered with an unnatural light, almost radiant amidst the agonizing gloom. She hesitated, every instinct screaming to run, yet something pulled her closer. As she reached for the handle, the whispers intensified, a cacophony of desperate pleas and laughter. "Open it," they urged, know the truth. Drawing in a trembling breath, she twisted the knob, the door swinging open with a low groan. Inside, she was met with a sight that made her stomach churn. A room decked in pink, just like Anna's. It looked inviting at first, but the scent of decay filled the air, an overwhelming stench underneath layers of innocent nostalgia. In the center stood a small dollhouse, intricately crafted but caked in grime. The windows seemed to watch her, cracked like the remnants of broken lives. "Mommy," a whisper floated from the dollhouse, a familiar melody that sent shivers down her spine. "Anna." The name escaped her trembling lips as she stepped inside the room. But as she approached, a wave of dread washed over her. "What's in there?" she thought. Before she could consider further, a figure dashed from the shadows at the edge of her vision, making her blood run cold. "Run, Sarah!" a voice screamed, too late to halt her. Time warped as the door slammed shut behind her. The corridor twisted into darkness, the air became electric with desperation. "Only one can return," echoed menacingly, surrounding her with anticipation and malice. Palpitations surged, panic clawed her throat. The dollhouse transformed, revealing countless tiny dolls, each a stark representation of lost souls, twisting and writhing in torment. Anna's likeness was unmistakable among them, the eyes were hollow, fraught with fear. "No!" Sarah gasped, tears spilling as the reality bore down on her. The fog outside was now inside, creeping along the floor, reaching for her. "Choose," the whispers hissed, together now, daring her to step closer. History seeped from the walls, shadows danced, laughing at her fading hope. Suddenly, all sound stopped. An oppressive silence draped over the atmosphere, thick as the fog outside. The dolls didn't move, even their wails stilled. Sarah's heart stopped. "What do you want from me?" she croaked. The dolls began to turn toward her, eyes narrowing, mouths twisting into cruel smiles. Then, once more, the shadows lurked forward, as if time had been woken. "Only one may return," they rasped again, the darkness swirling in anticipation, squeezing in tighter around her. In that moment, she faced the abyss. What would she sacrifice to save Anna? What was she willing to give up? Caught between the door behind her and the dolls before her, Sarah stood frozen. The choice had become a horrifying reality, but time was running out. As the cold fog crept mercilessly closer, Sarah realized that whatever awaited her was far worse than the shadows. Would she find the strength to choose, or would she be consumed by the night? The silence shattered like glass. A high-pitched scream erupted from the dollhouse, sending vibrations through the air. Sarah recoiled, her mind racing. The dolls, once mere figures, now loomed larger, their expressions grotesque. Each one bore a piece of her heart, the not-so-subtle reminder of the weight hovering over her. "Please, no," Sarah gasped, stepping back, her pulse hammering against her ribcage. The walls seemed to close in, and the fog thickened, smothering any attempt at clarity. "Only one can return." The shadows pressed closer, tightening their grip on her sanity. She darted to the door she had entered, yanking on the handle, but it wouldn't budge. It felt like cement poured over her hope, sealing her fate. Suddenly, the dolls began to move. Tiny limbs jerked in unnatural rhythms, their eyes wide and void. "Join us," they chanted in unison, a sickening echo of her daughter's name layered beneath. "Choose, get away from me," she shouted, her voice cracking. She turned, breathless, searching for an escape. The dollhouse loomed ominously in the center of the room, mocking her agony. Within its intricate architecture lay the answer, an answer that felt like it'd tear her apart. With her heart pounding like thunder in her ears, she took a step forward toward the dollhouse. Anna. The name tasted bitter and sweet on her tongue. The dolls twisted and squirmed, forming an insidious dance. It was a ritual of apprehension, a grotesque ballet of lost hopes. As she inched closer, something shimmered in the dim light. One doll, fashioned with a familiar scribble on its dress, held a tiny note. With trembling hands, Sarah reached out, the whispers growing louder. "Read it," they wailed, "know the truth, choose." She hesitated, the air thick with dread. Inches away, the note glimmered like a beacon of salvation and damnation. The doll spun slightly, its eyes unblinking, mouth opening as if to speak. "Stop!" Sarah yelled, her voice echoing back in sarcasm, but she was drawn in. Her fingers trembled, brushing against the smooth surface of the note. Heart racing, she peeled it from the doll's tiny grip, breaths rasping in her throat. "Only one can return." The words etched into her mind, a stinging reminder. "One must stay." No. Sarah screamed into the suffocating silence, tearing her eyes from the note. "I won't let this happen." The shadows roared around her, engulfing her in a whirlwind of anguished cries. The dolls began to chant her name, an eerie song that twisted her insides. Pinpricks of ice formed under her skin as realization struck. This place fed on despair, and it knew too much about her. With one last attempt, she turned to the door, pounding against it with everything she had. "Let me out. Please." But the wood stayed obstinate, an anchor to her growing dread. The dolls laughed, a high-pitched cacophony that echoed in her mind. "Only one," they sang, circling her like vultures. In that moment, she snapped. "Enough." She crumpled the note in her palm, heat surging as determination surged through her veins. "I will not be another lost soul." She spun, facing the dollhouse. "Show me," she demanded. "Show me the truth." As if responding to her challenge, the windows of the dollhouse flung open and a thick darkness poured out, swirling together to form a shadowy figure. With freezing intensity, it loomed, a malevolent presence that stirred the fog into a frenzy, the room pulsating with the weight of its fury. "Only one can return," it growled, deeper and darker than the whispers, wrapping around her like a shroud. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest. Would this be her end? Or the start of a terrifying new destiny? As the darkness threatened to swallow her whole, a choice hung heavy in the air, poised at the brink. In that shadowy moment, Sarah felt the crushing weight of every decision she had ever made, pressing down to where only a single truth remained: if not me, then who? But what awaited her if she chose to fight back? Darkness felt imminent, heavy with dread. She was losing the battle, but she had to decide. Would she follow the heart-wrenching cries of Anna or plunge into the void to confront the darkness head-on? The shadow enveloped her like a cold breath, tightening its grip around her throat. Sarah gasped, each intake of air feeling like shards of glass raking against her lungs. The doll's chant morphed into a horrifying symphony, and with it, the world around her blurred into a dark haze where only the shadow remained, pulsating with anger. "Only one can return," it echoed, vibrating through her bones with a terrible certainty. Panic surged as she felt her mind start to splinter. "What do you want from me?" she screamed, a mere whisper against the overwhelming darkness. "Make your choice," the shadow taunted, shifting and swirling like smoke in a gusting wind. It was mocking her, feeding off her torment. Each word dripped with malice, urging her to fold and despair. She wouldn't. Somehow, amidst the encroaching dread, a flicker of resolve sparked within her. The note crumpled in her fist felt like a weight, but she steadied her grip. If she had to choose, it wouldn't be her daughter, not Anna. Show me what I need to see. She shouted defiantly, her voice echoing raw, drowning in the surrounding chaos. At once, the dolls stilled, their haunting dance halting as if the very air had shifted. The shadow hesitated, its form flickering with uncertainty, drawn momentarily by her fierce determination. A doorway materialized behind it, framed in sheer darkness, whispering with temptation. Go back, it hissed, but the urgency in its tone was unmistakable. It was a warning, and perhaps recognition of her will. Her heart raced. If I'm going back, I take her with me. The resolve ignited like fire in her chest. The shadow recoiled, its essence drawing back, shimmering like a mirage, anger radiating from it. Impossible, it growled, a wave of icy fury cascading through the room. The dolls began to tremble, and for a brief moment, she saw fear flicker across their waxen faces before they swarmed around her, their small hands grasping at her limbs with relentless strength. No. Sarah fought against them, struggling, but they were too strong, like a tide pulling her into the abyss. Their whispers became a raging roar, drowning out her thoughts. Join us, their words wormed into her head, injecting doubt, festering in her confidence. Suddenly, visions erupted within her, memories of Anna, her laughter, her smile. Would the dolls take her daughter away forever? The thought was unbearable. Stop. You can't have her. Gritting her teeth, she broke through the mass of dolls, stumbling toward the shadow doorway, her heart pounding a frantic beat. But the shadow leaped forward with a furious hiss, anger flowing through it. You do not command this realm. The temperature plummeted, and she felt a freezing dread wash over her. The banshee screams exploded around her, the dolls collapsing to the wooden floor, scattering like autumn leaves. Sarah's instincts screamed to run, but the specter encapsulated the doorway, urging her forward, and then she saw it within the obsidian mass of the shadow. A flicker of gold caught her eye, an object glimmering like hope in the oppressive dark. With a single, desperate breath, she lunged toward the flicker. The moment her fingers brushed its surface, a blinding light erupted. The screams turned to wails, and the shadow recoiled, but it was too late. The light engulfed her, searing her skin as it encased her with warmth. Only one can return echoed in her mind. In that moment, Sarah felt herself stretching, bending through dimensions, pulled to pieces and rebuilt. Her eyes snapped shut against the brilliance, and just as abruptly as it began, everything fell silent. When she opened her eyes, she gasped at what lay before her. Instead of the dollhouse, she stood in a dimly lit room. The walls looked familiar, but they felt wrong. Faded wallpaper peeled away, uncovering ancient layers of despair. And there, in the center, stood a single doll on a pedestal, a reflection of Anna, smiling innocently. The air thickened again, the weight of expectation pressing down. Welcome back, a voice whispered, silk and shadow. Sarah's heart stopped. What did I bring back? In that haunting moment, she realized she had left something behind, something tied to Anna's fate, and now her choice loomed sharper than ever. What had she awakened? Sarah's breath quickened as she stared at the doll, its painted smile unsettlingly familiar. The room swayed, shadows clawing at the corners like angry spirits. Was this truly a return, or a twisted trap? The little figure on the pedestal felt alive, its eyes crafted with some dark knowledge, as if it held secrets of the very realm she just escaped. Who are you? She stammered, unable to tear her gaze away from the doll. It seemed to shrug off the question, the smile deepening, mocking her confusion. A chilling silence responded, stretching and warping the air. Then, a soft giggle echoed through the room, making her skin crawl. You think you can take her back? You've only brought a part of her, a part that doesn't belong to you anymore. The voice wrapped around her, sticky and oppressive, then faded like the flicker of a dying candle. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, but there was nowhere to go. The walls themselves felt like they were closing in, however, the shadow of the previous realm lingering like a bad dream. Desperate, she stepped closer to the doll, searching for clues, something, anything to help her understand her new reality. The doll's laughter rang in her ears again, the sound morphed into an ominous chant as if the shadows themselves joined in. Only one can return, they chorused, haunting her with every syllable. She staggered back, confusion compounding into terror. Anna, she gasped, searching her memory for the face of her child. The laughter slithered into a sinister whisper, drawing her to the edges of some profound darkness. You left me, now you must pay, it taunted, and she could feel the weight of its malice biting into her core. Stop! She yelled, her voice cracking. The shadows swirled, shifting into grim shapes that twisted and writhed. They drew closer, fingers of despair reaching for her, dragging her thoughts into a vortex of dread. The walls pulsated, almost breathing, as the pallor of reality began to bleed away. Choose, the voice beckoned, echoing mercilessly around her. What will you sacrifice for the return of what you love? Panic gripped her heart. What choice? What sacrifice? She needed Anna. All she could see were flashes of memories, tinged with loss, the sound of her daughter's laughter, the warmth of her tiny hand. The room around her darkened, her options narrowing into a treacherous path. Leave or lose forever, it whispered again, salt and ash mixing with the air. She gritted her teeth, summoning her last vestiges of strength. Anna needs me, and I won't let her go. She shouted defiantly, but the shadows surged forward, enveloping her like a vice. The dull smile morphed into something grotesque, inches away from her face, as it whispered haunting promises of glory and terror. Suddenly, the air cracked, a rift opening in the very fabric of the room. The shadows danced with excitement, cackling maniacally as they pulled her toward the black void, an insatiable hunger hanging thick in the air. The specter of a choice presented itself once more, but this time it bore a heavy price. With every ounce of her being, she fought against the grip of despair, her mind racing. What do I have to lose? She choked out, a final challenge to the darkness. Only what you hold dear, it murmured, the threat heavy in its silence, and then it hit her, the objects scattered around. Whatever she had brought back with her now threatened to take her deeper into the abyss. Anna. Her voice broke as the memory clutched at her heart. Would it truly be her daughter, or her own soul that paid the ultimate cost? The shadows twisted wildly, the walls boiling with a growing tension, ready to consume her whole. Time's running out, choose wisely. A single promise loomed in the darkness: if she did not act soon, the final door would close forever. What choice would she make? Sarah's heart raced like a runaway freight train as the shadows closed in, their haunting whispers echoing around her. Each breath felt more suffocating than the last. She could almost feel the weight of Anna in her arms, the warmth of her small body. The thought of losing her child ignited a fierce resolve, drowning out the darkness's taunts. Time was running out. You want a choice? She shouted defiantly at the encroaching void. Fine. I'll choose my daughter. The laughter of the dark entity twisted, a sickening sound that reverberated through her bones. You misunderstand, dear Sarah. Only one can return. Its voice dripped with malice, swirling around her like smoke. No. She screamed. I would take Anna's place in a heartbeat. The words echoed back, a mix of determination and desperation. And for a moment, the darkness faltered. It flickered, revealing tiny glimpses of the battered room once more, and Sarah felt the flicker of hope reignite. I won't leave her behind. The walls trembled, shadows shifting and recycling into hidden forms. The once living dolls began to vibrate, their features twisting painfully, as if reflecting the turmoil of its captor. Choose. But then she remembered. The light she had felt before, the flicker of gold in the shadow. It had meant something. Could it be more than just a trick? Taking a deep breath, Sarah closed her eyes and thought of Anna, the sound of her laughter and the warmth of her touch. The doll's gaze pierced her, and she felt an overwhelming urge to reclaim her daughter. In that precise moment, she knew the truth: to save Anna, she had to face her fears head-on. Show me. She commanded, her voice breaking through the haze. I choose to fight not just for her, but against you. The shadows recoiled, churning in confusion, their power wavering as if confronting an unexpected force. As Sarah screamed her declaration into the void, a fire ignited within her, illuminating her with a fierce light. "You've taken enough. We won't be your pawns any longer." The palpable tension in the air shifted, the shadows twisted and shrieked, clawing at the edges of the blossoming light surrounding her. "Only one can return," it hissed, rage radiating from its form. "No." Sarah hurled back. This wasn't going to be a game anymore. She rushed toward the ominous glow in the corner, feeling its warmth radiate against the icy tendrils of despair. She could feel the air crackling with energy, faint mirages of Anna flickering at the edges of her vision. "Anna!" she called, the name reverberating through the darkness, piercing the essence of their captor. "Show yourself." The flickering grew stronger, morphing into a reality. Sarah could hardly believe an outline of her daughter shrouded in light. In that moment, she felt their connection, a bond that transcended the confines of the darkness. "Mommy!" Anna's voice broke free like sunlight through storm clouds, a sound so beautiful it shattered the silence. "Yes, my love. I'm coming." Sarah reached for the light that pulsed like a heartbeat. The shadowy tendrils lunged for her, but she summoned every ounce of strength, tearing through the veil of despair. As she surged forward, the world around her exploded in a tempest of chaos. Shadows wailed, furious at the realization that their power was crumbling. "No. You cannot escape." But Sarah held on, her love radiating like a beacon. With one final burst of determination, she lunged for the flicker of warmth, wrenching open the door of light waiting before her. In an instant, energy surged, enveloping her. The shadows exploded outward, their screams dissipating into the air like lost whispers. And then it was quiet. Sarah opened her eyes. Light enveloped her, filtering through a haze. As clarity returned, she found herself in the familiar corridor of the Crescent Moon Motel, the flickering lights casting soft halos. "Mommy?" Anna's voice broke through the stillness. Sarah turned and fell to her knees as she saw her daughter standing before her, radiant and safe. Relief washed through her like a tidal wave. She reached out, pulling Anna into her arms tightly, feeling the warm weight of her child. "Thank God," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You're safe, my baby." "I thought, Mommy. I was scared." Anna's small voice choked with emotion. "I know," Sarah sobbed, holding her daughter tightly, every worry and fear melting away. "But we're together now, and I'm never letting go again." As they held each other, a stillness enveloped the motel. The infamous 7 sinister rules faded into oblivion, their power slipping like sand through fingers. The shadows had lost their bite, their cries silenced by the bond between mother and daughter. Sarah finally breathed deeply, filled with new hope. They had chosen each other against the darkness. They had chosen love. As dawn broke, light spilled into the motel, chasing away the remnants of fear, wrapping them in warmth. Together, they stepped outside, hand in hand, into a world that felt infinitely brighter. And perhaps, just perhaps, the curse of the Crescent Moon Motel had finally been broken. But she knew one thing for certain: she'd never work a night shift again. Thank you for joining Sarah and Anna on this terrifying journey. If you loved this story, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive tales. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and keep seeing stories like this. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about every twist and turn in this nail-biting conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this heart-pounding ending. Only true fans understand how important it is to support the channel through these actions.